and this is how your crank should go in. And that's literally,
yeah.
I think that's how it should.
If it does go in.
It's cooled down now.
Oh yeah, Rob from DocWob Imports again. This episode we're going to do an update on Kawasaki builds. We're building Kawasaki's for this year's VMXdN Foxhill. Tommy Searle's contracted, Kawasaki's got no choice. Mike Brown won the championship in 01 on a Pro Circuit Kawasaki 125, so we're going to build him a Pro Circuit replica of that bike. By building a different brand of bike, it helps us manufacture some more parts so we can then sell them to the public. The stuff you need, the brake carriers, the discs, the power valve covers, the axle blocks, the axles, the chain guides, all that stuff we now make for Kawasaki's. So we'll try it out with Brownie and Tommy and make sure it's all bulletproof as it can be, and then we know it's good to sell.
I waited for someone to save. I want to tell you something new. You drove us both into a wall. I drive away into the night, and I contemplate for a while. Don't you think for the people that pass me by, black lives down the lane sooner than this? Don't you think for the people that pass me by, black lives down the lane sooner than this? Don't you wish I would have been someone else? I want to feel your gap without breaking a mess at you. Why won't you tell me something new? I want to tell you something new.
So we've had a bit of a bombshell moment here at DocWob. Tyler Bowers, who I've known forever, wants to come and race VMXdN Foxhill. Very cool. We helped him build a KX250 a few years ago. We called the Unit. He wants to come. We're replicating that bike as best we can. So we've got a 94 KX250. The Tommy and the Brownie and the Villapoto and the Osborne bikes are all pretty much waiting on a couple of bits now. So we've got time to crack on. So we've got this KX250. Everything's in bits. Frames at the powder coaters. Forks are ready. Motor's just going together. It should be up on its wheels by the end of the week. So first off, I'll show you the carb. There's a lot of little tricks we can do to these because it's quite a basic thing. So I will show you what we've done for years. So with everything, having the right stuff makes it easier. Spoken about the hose, which makes that job easy. This is the combination of 30 years in the industry. My jet box. This is a lot of jets. I am going to estimate about 10 grand's worth of Mikuni and about the same in Kian. I've been gathering them all my life. I've had a bit of a windfall with some of the teams when they went away from two strokes, went away from carburetors into fuel injection. They didn't need them, so I ended up with all that stuff. And this is just years of collecting. We've got so many, it's retarded really. We're never going to use them all. All in sizes, so if anybody needs one, you can find it because I've got them. So this is the carb on the Tyler Bowers 94 KX250. It's quite a basic thing, if I'm honest. PWK key in, 39. This one's actually a 40mm. So there's a few tricks that we've learned back in the day to make these as good as possible. So first off is carb off. We steam clean it. We don't vapor blast the carbs just because that grit does get in everywhere and you can't get it out. So it's not worth the drama. So we polish, fluff and buff the carb, then we sonic clean it so it is as clean as it gets. Blow everything through. Everything's cleaned. Everything's ready to go. So we'll just do a simple assembly now of the carb, show you that, and I'll explain some of the mods that we do now. So first off, main jet going in. This is the jetting that we've developed. This is actually the same jetting as we built for John Dowd when we built them KX250s for VMXdN. So it's a 16855 jetting. So brand new jets. You can't really wear jets out, but when you've got them, you may as well put new ones in just in case there's any discrepancies. So 16855 on the jetting. Not much else going on in there really. Just cleaned everything, float bowl in. Now one of the coolest parts is the float bowl. The float bowl for this one is actually a factory part. These canisters were machined, and it basically just gives you more volume in the float bowl, only because on these big carbs, when they're on the gas, sometimes it starts to run a little bit lean because it's basically jiggling around, it's sucking air, foam. This holds a bit more volume, so when they're on the gas on full chat, it's not hurting for gas. So float bowl on. New O-ring in, that's good to go. New screws. Now we go diagonally. This is the carb, this is the ignition side, so the vent pipe will go down the front. So we put a single hose guide down there. On the other side, on the clutch side, the hose goes rearward, so it goes diagonally, so this one goes on the back side. I've done this a few times in my life. Float bowl plug. You would think, as many times as I've done this, I would have remembered a 17mm spanner. So you think I've done a few of these. I need a 17mm for the float bowl. So just nip that one up. Okay, then we're into the choke mechanism. Just take it off and clean it. A little bit of seal grease around it. Now I need a 14. And now, a 14 for the choke. What an amateur. These don't go up particularly tight. There's that. Next in's air screw. Again, a little bit of grease, just a tiny little smidge. Air screw in there. Now we always set the air screw to be 1.5 turns out. And the rule of thumb is, on an air screw, if you're any more than 1 turn in, you need to change your pilot jet. Any more than 2 turns out, you need to change your pilot jet. So half, 1, 1.5. You've basically got 1 turn between 1 and 2 turns. So we set it at 1.5, just that's a good medium starting point. Tick over screw, another little bit of grease. These plastic tick over screws, not my favourite, but there you go. So that can go in. We'll adjust that when she first runs up. Next is the slide. We always replace the slide. There's always wear on them. They're really expensive. They're like 90 quid, but the last thing you need is a carb slide jamming open on you. You've only got to ask Stephen Sword about that. He'll tell you all about how bad that was on the bike that he rode at VMXdN one year. We didn't build it. So NAFF needle on number 2 clip, same as we ran with Dowdy. And then, like I say, we're going to run slightly different fuel this year. We're going to run VPC12. So we don't know if this jetting's going to be working good or not. So but it's a starting point. We know where we're at, and it's a good place to start. So then you carb cap on with a little bit of grease around the seal, just to make sure she's doing nice. And you think she's done, and now the work starts. Now on these earlier carbs, you see these 2 vent pipes here. On a more modern carb, you have one that goes vertically up there. And what that's to stop is when these guys were jumping and landing, and on the gas the minute they land to take off again. It's like a Supercross thing, but as Supercross obstacles became more in the outdoors, it became more of an issue. And what was happening was the fuel in the carb, with the zero gravity, as the bike's coming down and G'ing out, the fuel in the carb's coming up and out these overflows. Then there's no fuel in the carb. The fuel's coming out of the carb quicker than it's going in. When they land, it bogs. So that's why you've got your vent pipes which go up and over. So if you could actually have a camera looking at those, when you take off, the fuel goes up those and comes back down again. With these, it just goes out and goes on the floor. So that causes a problem. So what the factory teams did is you can have T-pieces out of here. I'm lucky enough to have access to some of these ever so cool machined billet pieces, which we'll attach to these. Then we can go up and down on the pipes. Also, this is a pro circuit made overflow canister, and this will sit underneath the coil. There's a hole in it. There's foam inside there, so the fuel goes up and back down again. So if he has any G outs, he's not going to have any issues. So a little bit of wood, one of these, got some Loctite there, Tom. Little touch of Loctite. Ooh, and you position that over there. Okay, so now you can do your vent pipes. We buy the vent pipe in. Quite a cool little story on this, if you're interested, is I used to travel to the Grand Prix with Roger Harvey, HRC head honcho, and we used to pick up the head HRC engineer from the airport and take him to the hotel, because he spoke English, but he wasn't comfortable doing that. He was a really, really clever guy. In fact, he's now in charge of HRC. And I used to give him goggles for his kid, because I was the goggle guy at the time. And I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe one day he can find some HRC parts for me or something. But what I did ask him for, at the time, we were struggling for this pink carb pipe. It's ever so expensive. And you were buying like it on... You were buying it and it was just crazy expensive. So I asked him if he could get me some. So he said, give me a part number. So I got him the part number for this pipe. Now this pipe comes in 3mm ID and 4mm ID. So the float bowl's 3 and the rest of it's 4. So then I gave him the part number, didn't know anything else about it. It was a few months later, British GP coming up, and Roger said, oh, they got that pipe for you. They've dropped it off at the Rally Raid guys in Spain, and they're going to have it with them in the truck at Matterley. Oh, cool. Then Roger rings me laughing. Have you seen what he's got you? I'm like, no. Expecting him to give me the part number. Well, anyway, he gave me these massive rolls. And it's what the HRC guys, he had it in the workshop, and it's what the HRC guys used. So I used them up. And then I started thinking, geez, I reckon we can sell some of this. So, a friend of mine, Greg, does engine dynos, and they have a guy in Japan who sources parts. So I sent him the picture of the label. He came back with a manufacturer, which I ended up buying. We had to buy such a lot of it to get him to even sell it to you, because it's the people who manufacture it for HRC. So that's it. And we just buy it from them as and when we need it now. But there's some intelligent people on there tell us it's not the right stuff, and I'm like, good enough for them. It's good enough for me. At the moment, we're just guessing. They're obviously far too long. But you just trim it to length when you've got it. So, pop a little carb clips. We make these as well, because these were always hard to find. That's what we tend to do, is like when we're building bikes, if we can't find the bits, I figure nobody can. That sounds big-headed a little bit, but what we do is we source the parts, we make them, then we sell them. I'm going to estimate where that's going to go. I'm not going to put a clip on here because this has got to come off again. I'm sure it's going to be shortened. That goes to there, to the other side. You see what it is yet? fiddly old job this is. I'm trying to do it right the first time, so I don't look like a twat. Normally, I leave this Loctite to dry before I do this, so I'm hoping I don't pop these press fit pieces off. So with the float bowl being bigger volume, and with this, it gives us a fighting chance. It doesn't fix the problems completely, but it means it's a much tidier job. Like I say, I won't put the clips on those yet because I guarantee we'll have to shorten them. And then on this end, when we do it to the right length, you cut it at an angle, then you cut it lengthwise. Just stop it blocking up. So we don't know how long they're going to have to be yet. So there's your carb. Built, ready to go on the bike. Should work well. So there's the carb finished, clean, jetted somewhere near. We've got slightly different fuel and the altitude's different at Foxhill, so I'm sure we're not going to end up with that jetting, but it's somewhere near. It's a good starting point. That'll be located under the tank, underneath the coil. Carb looks good, nice big float bowl, nice pipe. We'll shorten the pipe to length. She's good to go. One more part of the puzzle, ready to go on the bike. So this is the progress on the Mike Brown race bike. In fact, this bike's much the same, if I'm honest. There's not much difference. So she's coming together. The KYB kit forks are in. GMX rads are on. You can't beat a GMX rad. Lovely. 1.6, 1.8 rad caps, depending on what we need. Motor, we're waiting on cylinders from Pro Circuit, but I'm told they're imminent, so we'll have them very shortly. We started to make a load more bits for these bikes, like we're making like the rear brake reservoir and the rear brake clevis. Foot pegs, Tommy found the stock foot pegs. His foot came off one time, so that was it. We ain't using them. So these are now a DRC foot peg we're running, which is actually an early KTM, pre-16 KTM foot peg, painted gunmetal grey. So that's that. We also use a KTM tip on the back brake pedal, which is more aggressive, and a lot of them baggy, worn out. So that basically tightens everything up. The proper expensive front brake, believe it or not, that front brake is $4,500. But Brownie's hard on front brake, so he's going to need it. So there's that. Clamps are done, front number plate we've shown you on a separate video. She's coming together. All we need now is the cylinder and the pipe and the graphics, and she's built. Even got cool things like back in the day we used to run a jet ski plug cap because the waterproofing wasn't the best. Well, you can't get any better than a jet ski. So this is the proper plug cap, and the plug has like a white piece of plastic that goes around it, and you basically run a cable tie through, stops the plug cap coming off. All very cool. We used to run it back in the day with Paul Emerson. So this thing's got the big brake carriers, the axle blocks, the tie axles, every nut and bolt tie. Another thing which Tommy found out he doesn't like is the lowered subframe. So Tommy's going to run with a taller subframe because he prefers the way it turns. So every guy's got the option of lowered or normal height subframes. So we're going to go down there with options. Brownie won't see this bike until the Monday before the race. So at least with Tommy riding, we'll have some pretty good base settings to go from. So we should be all right. And Brownie is a machine. He'll put it to him, I'm sure. So that's it for this week. Kawasaki update. Next time you see these, they should be finished. Hopefully everything comes in time. We're still 5-6 weeks away from the event. It's all looking good for the race. Everything's up, so we should be having a cracking weekend. Bikes are getting close now. We probably a day and a half on each one now to finish them off when the parts come. So these should be finished. The Tyler Bowers KX250 will be up on its feet on the next video. Whether that's finished or not, we'll have to wait and see. All the parts we make will be on our website as and when we've tested them enough to know they're good enough for sale. We don't have many problems, but we've got to try the stuff. So Tommy's out there trying to break stuff right now, and once it's all good, we'll sell it. Eh?
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, all that shit.